Hello, everyone. My name is the Historical Gamer. You can call me Matt. And today I'm here with Jean, the Strategy War Gamer. How are you doing today, Jean?
Not bad, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. We're on to episode 9 of the Single Malt Strategy podcast, and we've just
We
gotten
got to
through.
do something special for episode 10.
Maybe we should, yeah. Episode
I was
10.
just thinking, 1-0 is a big milestone right there.
Well, especially when you consider that we've been doing, for the most part, episodes every other week rather than weekly. So, we're on to 5 months running at this point for the podcast, and that takes a little bit of commitment and effort. But we just made it through the holiday season, so we're into early 2017, and I know we both kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. I was. For Christmas, I was out of pocket for about a week. Before that, for Thanksgiving, I was out of town for about a week. And then New Year's, I was out of town for several days as well. So all over the road, not a ton of chances to be sitting down at my computer and playing games as much as maybe I would like. And it sounds like, based on our discussions, you were doing a fair bit of traveling as well.
Did you bring a laptop with you by any chance?
I brought my laptop and my iPad. I didn't play much in the way of gaming on my iPad. I guess I don't know why, but I've never really gotten too much into strategy games on my iPad. It's an older one. It's the original iPad Mini. I don't know, for whatever reason. It's not something I've done a lot of, but I certainly would be willing to try. But I did bring my laptop and did play some games on there as well. What about you?
See, for me, I mean, so I drive up to, unfortunately, I drive up to Brooklyn a lot during the holidays because I go up for Thanksgiving, I come back down, and I'm currently in Virginia, but originally from Brooklyn. So I drive down it's like an 8-hour drive, 7 or 8 hours, depending on the traffic. So I used to have a laptop. I used to bring it up with me, but I usually carry like a tablet, a phone, and a laptop. So, I just got rid of the laptop, got a desktop, and kind of was hoping to rely on my iPad for everything. And it kind of does the job, I'll give you a good example. Like I went up for a Christmas break, and I got up there somewhere around like 7, 8 in the morning, and everybody's cooking up a storm for, we kind of celebrate Christmas like around Christmas Eve night. So everybody's cooking up a storm, and, they kind of kick me out of the way. They're like, listen, just go on the couch, watch TV, and leave us to what we're doing. So it was a perfect opportunity to bring out the iPad, play some games, and I had some amazing gameplay there. I was playing Command of the Great War. I was doing a little Here's Normandy, and I literally was playing a bunch of games on my tablet. But I've ran into some difficulty because as much as I enjoyed playing games on my iPad, especially Command of the Great War. I was playing literally hours of it. I couldn't share with anybody, and I just published a video on my channel about like the pitfalls of iOS. I've been using an iPhone and iPad since like 2008, since the iPhone 3G. If anybody can remember that one, that was back in the day. And anyway, I've been using these devices for so long, and, they're simple, and, they have a lot of horsepower, and they're great operating systems. But they couldn't do a simple task that I wanted them, which was just basically I wanted to record, the gameplay I was doing, especially on Command of the Great War, because I was doing some amazing, legendary pincer movements on Romanian, Russian. I literally knocked out Russia and France within, I think, the first year and a half of the war, which is a record, I think. So yeah, right. So I wanted to kind of publish that to YouTube or to send to a couple of friends of mine, but I couldn't do that. And Apple kind of puts out iOS as the most advanced mobile operating system in the world, and they're trying to get professionals to come to the platform, obviously with iPad Pro or with the name Pro in there. They're trying to, lure professionals from the tablet, from the laptop and desktop markets. But if you can't record a screen or just record the screens that you're using on an iPad, I mean, it's got me to rethink my device.
I thought there was an app that let you do that though. I remember following your web page, and a couple of years ago, even you were sharing footage that I thought was from iPad games or iPhone games, and it put like the almost like a little image of the outline of an iPad or something like that, and then it showed you the screen in between there. And I was always a little bit frustrated because until maybe a year or two ago, I had always had Androids, and I never was really. I mean, I know how to root a device. I worked for a cell phone company for a long time, so I'm certainly capable of doing that. But I never really wanted to do it because I was always a little bit paranoid about bricking my device, even though I know that's not that big a deal. I mean, it's not that hard to do, or it is somewhat hard to do. But I always thought it seemed to me like you had an easier time of recording your footage on an iPad than I ever had, at least in the earlier days of Android.
Well, I mean, the reason I was able to do it a couple years back was when I was working at Apple. I worked with a lot of developers, and one of the developers that I believe I ran into or I was referred to was I forgot the name of it, but they make an app on the Mac called Reflector. And, they gave me, so I iMac, and they were kind of saying like, if you connect it through a lightning port through the, through your iPad, now you can do it through AirPlay. And you kind of do through AirPlay, and you do AirPlay mirroring, and you can mirror the exact your iPad or your iPhone to your Mac, and then from there I use QuickTime to record it, or you can use Reflector to record it too. I just use QuickTime, and then from there I bring into Final Cut Pro, do my edits, and then I send it up to YouTube. But the problem is like, look how long that process is. Like for example, if I want to the way it should be is like I play Command of the Great War, press record on whatever I'm doing in the game, play the game. Stop it. It goes into a photos album, right? I go into iMovie on the iPad, edit, and send it out. I shouldn't have to get the iPad, connect it to my iMac, which is a little bit of a process, then adjust the screen size, and launch a Reflector app, record the screen, then and then do everything from the iMac. It's literally I'm having to use two devices just to record stuff on one. That's supposed to be a professional device, for pro users. And it just got me very, very upset because it was like I was up in New York and I want to record all this gameplay footage to share, but also to have just for me. And I couldn't do that. And I know in Android you can, and like you were saying, you're using Android like that was your previous device. I felt like, and I'm very familiar with Android. I know you can record the screen on Android. I know you can record gameplay on Android.
Yeah, I think it's gotten better. For a while,
that's why I'm rethinking everything.
For a while, you had to root your device to do it, which is, I mean, it's not difficult to do. There have been a few apps that have come out more recently within the last couple of years. The last 2 years I've had an iPhone and an iPad, and I haven't used my Android tablet that much. But yeah, I mean, you can. I guess I kind of wonder because it's interesting. I've seen several games, and Twitch do it as well, where they're building integration in, so you can just like press a button in the game and it goes right to your Twitch stream, so you can actually share it that way. But that puts it really in the hands of the individual game developers, and then it's not really a feature of the device itself, which is
because Apple does have as of iOS 9, which was last year, 2 years ago, because we're in 2007. It came out in 2015. iOS 9, Apple did announce, like, hey, we're going to allow you to record your gameplay pad, and then you can upload it to Facebook or Twitter, whatever. And that was great. Everybody, I literally I was working at Apple, right? And then I found out that the developer has to add that framework, that API into their app. And if they don't do that, then, well, you can't do it. So I just get frustrated because, like, how you to record your gameplay on your iPad? I mean, I could probably name on one hand how many gaming apps that I know that do that.
Oh, come on. I think Clash of Clans does it. That's a strategy game, right? Clash of Clans.
Don't get me started on that one. Well, I think it actually, now that I think about it, probably does. But it was, I was going through, like, I typed in Replay Kit on the App Store, and it came out with, like, Flowers Galore, and I'm like, yeah, that's definitely a game I want to record gameplay on. But it was just, I don't know. I get really frustrated that it's kind of limiting me on what I can do on my iPad. And I mean, supposedly this is supposed to be a professional device, and you're trying to lure in professionals to use this device. People that use Final Cut, Logic, and like really professional apps that they use on their iMac and MacBook Pro. But why do you limit iOS in such a way? And which is why I'm really considering moving to Android, because on Android not only can you record the games, but another sweet spot of Android would be you can run emulators on. And I mean, to get a Genesis emulator on there to play Liberty or Death or PTO, I mean, it'd be kind of. I was actually I was at the DMV like a month ago, and I was playing I forgot what game I was playing, probably Drive on Moscow or something like that. And I was like, it would be really cool if I could play Liberty or Death right now. And I was trying to like run in my mind, how would I make that possible on iOS? And I couldn't make that happen. But I was thinking, it was like if I had a Galaxy Note or not a Galaxy Note, I don't want that blowing up on me, but a Pixel or something like that, I would like, it would be actually possible.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think some of it also stems from where are people playing these kind of games as well. Because one thing that's interesting is, you mentioned a couple of games there, but I know you said you were playing, was it Commander of the Great War over the holidays? And yeah. I don't think that's on Android, is it? I don't think Slytherin has put that on Android, and I kind of wonder if, at least traditionally, people who are willing to spend, $10, $15 on strategy games or more, on strategy games on tablets or phones or what have you, didn't. I guess Android was a much smaller market share of that percentage of people willing to spend that. So I wonder if maybe Android's more open and lets you do that and lets you share things and lets you kind of have a community type experience around your gameplay, but the games are they really there in the quantity and quality that you're looking for? It's kind of a trade-off there.
No, and that's like you were saying. I mean, you're right about that. I mean, the iOS App Store is much more richer. Talking to people at Slytherin, I also when I was at back when I was working at Apple, I was talking to a lot of developers, and I was conversating with them like, which platform do you spend most of your time developing for? And they always said iOS. And every time I asked them why, and they said, well, because the majority of revenue comes from iOS. We don't get a lot of revenue from Android. And, talking to friends and family, especially over the Christmas break, I was always asking them, like, why aren't you buying apps on Android? It came out with the reason we're like, well, I could root my device, or, either I could root my device or I just get the free apps. And I always ask them the question, I'm like, do you realize by doing that, you're kind of you're not enticing developers to develop for your platform. So why are you doing that? Why are you avoiding paying $2 for a productivity app and rooting your device instead to get it for free? And by doing that, you're kind of not enticing the developer to make any more amazing apps or more productivity apps or gaming apps or whatever it may be. And they were like, well, I don't believe we should pay money for apps. And I'm like, then who's going to make? I mean, we live in a world where, people work for money. People don't make apps just, spend day and night making apps for free. They want to get some income out of it. So this way they can make more apps. And unfortunately, people, my friends and family, they believe that all apps should be free. I don't understand that concept. Like a lot, with my iPad and my iPhone, I still buy apps to this day, whether it be $3 or $4 or $5. To me, I mean, that's nothing. If I can spend $5, I actually just over the Christmas break, I bought a stupid app, and it's called I can't find it right now, but it's like it's called Meta. Here it is, Metapho, Metapho, and it allows you to change the metadata off your photos. So I can go into a photo that I took in 2008 and rename it to a 2016 photo. And I spent $2 on that. And to me, I had like no, it really didn't bother me. It was like, even if I don't never use this app again, just have the capability to do that is worth $2 for me. But people I know, like I was talking to people in the firehouse, and they were like, "No, I wouldn't spend $2 for that." I'm like, "Why not? It gives you so much power to over your photos." It's like, yeah, but I could probably root my device and get it for free. I'm like, and I just stuff like that really gets to me, because it's like, yeah, but for that $2 that you spent, that I spent, and a couple other people spent, that developer is going to go out and add more features into that app and support that app for much more years, and probably make more apps that are just as good, And I don't understand that frame of mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a. I understand it. It's why spend money if you don't have to, right? Like, if it's easy to say, oh, you should do this for the good of the industry, but if you're the only one doing it for the good of the industry, aren't you kind of the schmuck who's just being a fool? But anyway, I mean, I hear where you're coming from. I think there's a lot of concern from a longevity perspective of the app marketplace or even the gaming marketplace, given things like Steam, where the whole market's based on everything always being on sale. And if you're an indie developer now, and I think there was some statistic that came out like in 2016 more games were released on Steam, and I'm spitballing, so I might be off a little bit, but it was something like in 2016 more games were released on Steam than were released for all of the previous years combined. So if you're trying to get discovered in that marketplace, and the only way to get discovered is through sales, and you have to discount your product down, ever farther down and down and down until you're selling it for a buck or $2 or $3, and it costs time, it costs effort, it costs money. It's not free to build a game. To your point, at some point you're pricing yourself out, and I've kind of seen things on the video game crisis of the 80s, where there was an oversaturation of games, and then the gaming market kind of temporarily collapsed. You could see something like that happen, I think, in either PC or mobile. I think the one piece that helps to prop mobile up maybe more so than was possible in previous generations is this whole ad revenue scheme, where a lot of games that are free or out there or whatnot do have advertisement.
How do you feel about that? I can't deal with that. I had people that said, well, why don't you just put ads in your game? I'm like, honestly, when I go into an app and they have like ads on the top and bottom, it kind of, I don't know, it not pisses me off, but it just kind of, I don't know, waters down the app. It just takes away from the value and the quality of that app.
I think it depends on the app. I mean, I think it's certainly a tool at the hands of a developer. If I'm making a game and no one's willing to spend money on it, but they are willing to sit through, having an ad at the bottom of the screen, frankly, I'm going to do what I need to do to pay the bills, right? As long as it's not intrusive and doesn't take away from you actually being able to play the game. I mean, that's certainly an option. Now, you're well within your rights to say you don't want to deal with that as a consumer, but there are trade-offs that developers have to make, in order to be viable.
But the thing is, they shouldn't have to make that trade-off. That's the problem. Is like we're in a society today, which really is kind of shitty. I mean, just to come out and say it, it really kind of shitty. We're comfortable with spending $2 or $3 on a cup of coffee. We're not comfortable with spending 99 cents in an app that you'd probably spend a couple hours on. I don't get that ideology. I don't understand. When you're spending $3 on a cup of coffee, fine, or even $5. I've seen some people spending $5 on a cup of coffee at Starbucks, and they're like, well, I refuse to buy a 99-cent app. I'm like, why? You just spend a $5 cup of coffee. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me.
I think some of it is a cup of coffee is tangible. You can feel it. You can hold it. You can taste it. To people, a digital product is not the same. They say, if I'm downloading a free version of it, even if it's a ripped version, well, I'm not hurting the developer. I didn't really steal anything from them. Yeah, they didn't get money, but I also didn't, physically take anything. It's not like they actually lost. So, I mean, it gets into the whole, and I'm not going to lie, I've been someone that at points in my life, I've downloaded, a torrent or two in my life. So, it was a long time ago, but I can understand why people do those kind of things. And, it's, again, from a developer's perspective, you can say you're not going to buy a game that has mobile ads. And I can understand that. But I think then you have to say, okay, you have to be willing to pay something for it, because otherwise these things aren't going to exist unless they're going to survive through product placement. I don't know. Maybe you'll start seeing like war games that have BMW tanks, or I don't know, maybe making a bigger emphasis of the F-18 being made by Boeing. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, and it's a question that unfortunately, and I've been in the mobile industry. I mean, I just left it last year, but I've been in it since the height of the birth of the iPad all the way up to last year, and I've seen the transition. I've seen in the early days of 2010, 2011, even like 2012, people were fine spending $5 or $10 on apps. I've seen it. I was with them, and they're like, "Yeah, it's only $5 here." But somewhere, I don't know where it was, between 2013 and probably somewhere around 2015, the perception of the entire marketplace changed. People started, kind of focusing more on, free. I don't want to pay for apps. That they should all be free. Things like that. I've noticed that over the last couple of years that the whole situation has changed, and and we probably mentioned this in a previous podcast, but
it's developers devaluing.
It's affecting the way.
It's developers devaluing their product. It's a short-sighted decision to say, I'm going to get ahead of my competition by dropping my price, and then more people will buy my game, and then their competitor does the same thing, and then the next competitor does the same thing. In the short term, it's great for the consumer. I'm not someone who's saying anything that I think. I go out on Steam and buy games when they're on sale, right? But at some point, there's diminishing returns there, and I think there are very different effects on the industry. It's great for consumers that you can turn around and buy a AAA game for $10, and it's fine for the developer if they can push enough copies out there to recoup their costs. But at some point, you're going to get to a point where you're dropping your prices so much. You need to sell so many units in order to stay in business that it's just not feasible. That only a certain number of games are going to sell 1 million plus copies, and at some point, you're going to start seeing developers fail because they can't drive enough volume there if consumers aren't willing to spend top dollar on some of these products. And I see complaints all the time about developers who are accused of pricing their strategy games too high, and I think it's fair as a consumer to say someone else is charging way less, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that but I'm only going to sell 2,000 copies of my game because no one 99% of people, I don't care what you price it, are going to have no interest in War in the Pacific Admiral's Edition because it's just too big of a game. It's not what most people are looking for. So you're going to have to charge a higher price to be able to provide that product. And, either people buy it and you continue to make the product, or people don't buy it and that kind of a game goes away. But that wasn't really, I don't think the focus of our episode was to get into the discussions of the economics of strategy and wargaming. But I do see your point from an iPad perspective, and I think it's a challenge going forward, right? If people...
But you also see a difference between the desktop gaming market and the tablet gaming market. Because I've noticed like people are fine with spending like $50 or $30, $40 on, let's say, like here's a Normandy for $40 on the PC, but when it comes out to like $30 or $20 on the iPad, they're not comfortable with spending that much money on a tablet game, even though that tablet game has everything the desktop game has, pretty much.
Is that may be true at this point in time? Will that be true in 2 or 3 years? Again, Steam for a long time didn't have this sort of stranglehold on the PC market, for lack of a better word. And I love Steam. I use it all the time. I buy games that are on sale there. But I also realize that what's happening in Steam today with a massive influx of games, and for a long time Steam was very rigid about, we'll allow X, Y, or Z game on. We're going to curate this marketplace. We're going to be very tight on what we sell. Apple did the same thing for the iOS store for a while. To your point, years ago, people were much more willing to spend, and this is all, subjective, or not subjective, but this is all speculation. I don't have sales figures in front of me for iOS devices. I just see, people's perception in the marketplace. I see, I listen to podcasts, hear what developers are saying. So I'm not exactly an expert here. But what I will say is that it seems to me that iOS had a greater willingness of people to spend money on apps not that long ago. And perceptions are, at least based on what you're saying, that may not be the case anymore. PCs, people were willing to spend $40, $50 on a game 6 months after launch, not that long ago. But with the Steam sort of dynamic where you expect something to be on sale after 3 months for half of its retail price, as people get used to spending less and less and get used to seeing products dramatically discounted, and that becomes the norm, and then you have an inflation of the amount of products that are available and visibility becomes more difficult, are you not creating the same exact dynamic that created the issue you're talking about on mobile? It's just it's happening more slowly.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think the
because let's be realistic. Part of this is consumer expectations, right? If you tell someone, okay, my product is $50, my product is $50, my product is $50, and everybody else out there is saying my product is $50, and I'm not supporting collusion. I'm just saying, like, if that's the going rate of a product, then people will come to expect, okay, it costs $50 for this. Like, I may not like it, but that's what it costs. And now if you go, my product is $1, my product is $1, my product is $1, and someone else comes out here and says, well, listen, I can't sell enough of these, so I've got to charge $20, and everybody revolts against that because everything else is $1 and they feel like they're being ripped off because they're used to spending $1, then people are going to start expecting everything to be $1. At some point, that constant sales mantra does have an impact on consumers' expectations. And I can't blame a consumer. I can't blame anyone who's out there buying games on Steam saying, like, no, listen, these games cost this much. That's what I'm used to spending. Why should I spend more? It's harder to make that sales pitch, right? But I do think that over time, people's expectations change based on what the market does. And I don't know if it's good or bad.
You're kind of blaming you're faulting the developers in essence.
I'm not faulting anyone, okay? I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that it is. I think I can't blame a developer at all for wanting to sell their product. And there are many different ways you can try and get out there and sell your product. So, it's not for me to say what you're doing is wrong. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I do think that there are cause and effect. And if you get out there and you constantly discount your product, you constantly lower the price on your product, and your competitors all do the same thing, that has an impact on the market. And
I agree with you.
I
agree with you.
I'm not going to say it's right or wrong because I'm guilty of buying games on sale all the time, and I don't think that's wrong. I just think it's something that people need to realize, like, there are consequences to this, right?
If you're making a game half price, then there's a big difference. But if it, like, a good example would be like Civilization 6. I went on Steam during the Christmas break. I think it was like 10% off. It was like I forgot how much it was, but it was like, I think the game was like $60. I think I saw it for like $52 or $53, something like that on Steam. I think, according to your point, I agree is fine. Something like that, because if you bought the game 5 weeks ago before the sale, $6. Who cares about $6, right? But I feel like, like you were saying, if it was half off and it was like $29 and then you just bought it like 2 weeks ago or whatever, maybe weeks ago, yeah, then I could see a point where they're getting ripped off, and that kind of is going to affect the marketplace. So I think it depends on the level of discounts that they do. Because at 10%, 10%, who gives it, who really gives a shit about 10%?
Well, who gives a shit, because they're used to seeing 50%. If you never saw 10% and all of a sudden, someone was discounting at 10%, that'd be a big deal. I also think there's another aspect where, some of this can also be
10%, even if you have like the War in the Pacific, right? And that's $100, I believe, right? Normal price. And if Matrix games brought that down to 10% off or even 15% off. I can't speak for everybody, but I can say if they say 15% off for the Christmas break, and I just bought it 2 weeks earlier at $100, and I just lost $15. To me, $15 is nothing, right? You lose $15 coming out of the subway, right? So I mean, if Matrix did a different sale where they said instead of 50% off, we're going to make it 50% off at $50. To me, that's like, man, that's $50. I mean, that's a substantial amount of money. Not a substantial, but that's, that you can do stuff with $50. So I really, honestly, I think it depends on the level of the sale, because I think that's what affects the marketplace.
A lot of it's how it's marketed, though, because you can say like 10 or 15% isn't much, which you're right, but go tell that to someone in retail where a 10 or 15% sale at certain retailers drives a crazy amount of traffic and excitement, because that's not the norm. Again, I think consumer expectations are what drives a lot of this. If you never discount and all of a sudden you got a 15% discount, that can drive a lot of behavior and excitement with consumers. Even if the raw savings isn't a huge number, it's about more than just am I min-maxing what I'm spending. There are other aspects as well. I mean, this is a very complex problem. Maybe that's not the right word. Maybe it's not a problem. It's a very complex dynamic. You also have to look at the fact that there have been a lot of games that have been released at full price that haven't discounted for a while, that have been buggy as hell, and sometimes people make the rationalization of, well, I'm not going to buy it until it's fixed, and then it's out for a year, and well, why am I going to go buy a year-old game even if it's finally fixed? And you got to drive people back to the game by discounting it. So I mean, it's a very complex issue, and I think it's. I guess my cautionary comment is that people's unwillingness to spend on mobile apps, mobile games, is not some sort of unique dynamic to the mobile industry necessarily. It is something that can, and I see, in my opinion, I see it happening on PC as well to a lesser extent, but I don't think there's any inherent reason why it can't go the direction that mobile has gone. And I think that would be bad for the gaming industry as the whole. May not be bad for the individual consumer in the short term. Who wants to spend more money? Why should I spend more money than some other guy on a game just because I want to support the industry? Doesn't that kind of make me a sucker? But that wasn't. I know we're 30 minutes into this. That wasn't the intent of the entire discussion. Was to talk about the gaming industry. I know you had said that you had been playing a lot of iPad or games or whatnot. You were frustrated you couldn't share your experiences, but what were you playing over the holidays? And by the way, if you randomly disappear on me, I know it's because you're in the midst of a horrible blizzard where you live, and you're in the process of being buried alive with snow.
We're getting a horrific amount of snow here in Virginia. It's a total of 12 inches. So it's apocalyptic for Virginia standards. So it was kind of, it's getting, so there's a possibility my power might go out, which is, it's not even a possibility. It's a definite. I'm just wondering when that's going to happen. But over the course of the holiday excursion, I would have to say Command of the Great War is definitely on my top charts. I never thought I was going to hold on, let me start this game up here. I never thought that I was never a big World War I kind of person. I followed, watched some documentaries, read some books and stuff like that. But for some reason, the way Slytherin or developer, I forgot the name of the developer, but the way they designed this game was really incredible. It's an awesome grand strategy game, and the way they designed it for the mobile platform is perfect. I mean, it's a game that I constantly kept picking up my iPad and say, I got 10 minutes before I have to hit the firehouse or whatever, or school or something like that. I literally click on it and literally kick out one or two turns, and it's done the job for me. And it's an incredible game, and it encompasses like all of Europe and Russia and Northern Africa. So I mean, it's an incredible game. I'll Other games that I've been on my scale is Heroes of Normandy. Definitely is another one that I've been playing quite a bit. Drive on Moscow, which I never thought I was going to get back into, because I don't know if you're familiar with what's been going on with Shenandoah Studios, but I think that game came out in like 2013 or 2014, maybe even earlier than that. But it's a pretty old game, but for some reason it's been holding up. It hasn't been updated, or the version that I got for the iPad, which was the old version. I know Slytherin released a new version for the iPad. I don't have that one. I have the old one, and it's been, I mean, it's working fine. I mean, stability wise, it's been great. I'm actually in the middle of a match right now. There's been one game that I picked up that I haven't been really 100% satisfied with. And I kind of mentioned on our last podcast, which was Twilight Struggle.
Okay.
Did you get a chance to play that game?
I've played it not on iPad. I played it on the PC, and I'm not very good at it, and I don't fully understand it yet. But I also haven't had a ton of time to like dive into it and really figure things out.
Yeah, and that's the exact position I'm in right now. Like, so I got a Twilight Struggle, like I mentioned in the last podcast, was $5. I was thinking about picking this game up for quite a bit. So $5, I mean, $5 like it's a quick buy, right? So I picked it up, and I thought this was going to be a game that I was going to play over the Christmas break. Got like 4 days up in Brooklyn, 2 or 3 days I just have to sit on the couch and do nothing while everybody cooks. So I bought this game, and I probably sunk in maybe at most 3-4 hours in it. I mean, it's not a game that, like you were saying, I haven't, the learning curve is quite high on it. It's after 3-4 hours, I've kind of got the idea of the influence system on this game, but that's only like half of the gameplay mechanics of Twilight Struggle. There's a whole different other half, which is Millops, and then there's another system on top of that. So my first couple of games, or my first game, was completely like I only played the computer because I figure out at this point I'm nowhere near capable of playing another player. And I got my ass handed to me. And I honestly, I've been trying to get back in the game, and I was like, all right, let me try to understand this, and let me make some stupid moves just to kind of figure out how this mechanic works or how that mechanic works. And I still haven't been able to pick it up. And
it might help to look at the board game rules too. I don't know if you've looked at that, because it is very heavily converted from a board game. It's not, there's a lot out there about it, but you may just need to look elsewhere as far as strategies or rules or trying to understand components.
But Heroes of Normandy is Heroes of Normandy is a board game, right? And it initially was a board game before it became a tablet and PC game from But I picked up Heroes of Normandy, and I when I did my review on it, I literally picked it up, and I was literally off to the races in probably like 5 minutes. I was able to pick up the entire way the game plays in like 5-7 minutes. I mean, they give you the map. This is what you choose. This, that. Loads the map. You have 4 counters. Do this. I mean, if you've never played a board game, it'll probably take you 10-15 minutes. But I mean, it's a very simple game to understand. I feel like Twilight Struggle is a great deal more complex. Like, you need to invest a significant amount of time to kind of pick it up.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could agree with that. As far as, but I mean, I'm also, I don't know. I hesitate to criticize it too much when I haven't really put much effort into figuring it out. I know you're big on, it needs to be intuitive and easy to pick up and play, but sometimes that, I don't know. I've played Heroes of Normandy a bit, and I kind of mentioned in the last podcast, it kind of bounced off me, and I was kind of thinking, a friend who listened to the podcast kind of asked, well, you got to provide a little bit more than that on why it wasn't one of your top games, why you didn't enjoy it, other than just, it didn't resonate with you. And I think part of it for me was that, one, it didn't seem that intuitive. I didn't really know what I was doing. Like, okay, yeah, click a unit, move it across the map. I kind of understand that. I kind of get World War II tactics, but it didn't, to me, communicate all that well how to play, and the map seemed awfully small, and it was more tactical than I was looking for. I was looking for something more strategic. it that was kind of what held me back from that. Whereas Twilight Struggle kind of has the opposite of a game. It's this gigantic global scope game with a lot of very different issues and variables and things to figure out. And yeah, maybe the game doesn't do a great job up front of communicating that to you, but some games, some games you have to be willing to make an effort to figure out. And,
I mean, like with Twilight Struggle, I try to figure like I went to like the like not about section, but like they have like like you select a part of the UI, it brings up like what each part does. And I read through like the couple of paragraphs they had listed. I still couldn't even pick up the game. I will want to point out like I agree with you. The scope of the game is awesome. Like it goes from the beginning of the Cold War, I think, all the way from like Truman all the way up to 91. Gorbachev, I think, was the last premiere of the. Right? It was Gorbachev was the last premiere. No, was it Gorbachev? Yeah, Gorbachev was the last premiere of the Soviet Union. Yeah. So, I mean, the scope of that game it goes over decades, and it's awesome. I really love that. And you select different incidents that go on, like the Cuban Missile Crisis. But I don't know. For me, like if I can't pick up a game in terms of the like how to play it in the first. There's a certain level I'll go to, like if it takes me an hour to pick up the game, that's probably my like break off point. If it takes more than an hour and I still don't understand the gameplay mechanics on how to win the game, it's just at that point, I'm like, I lost my interest. And I know, like you were saying, that some games require a lot more, but I don't know. I mean, there's only a certain amount of time everybody has in a day, right? And as we go further into this technological revolution that we have, time is getting shorter and shorter because we got more stuff to do, and more time with family, more time at work. So the amount of time that we have for ourselves is getting less and less. So I feel like if I have to invest 4 hours of my day, it's the only 4 hours I have to myself just to understand how one game works. And I can't do anything else because I have to invest all that time in this one game. It's just, it shouldn't be that way. It should be like I should be able to pick up the game in 20 minutes, play for a few hours, and and enjoy it instead of rather than learning how to play it.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody's looking for something different. I mean, that's you. I mean, that's certainly your opinion. I'm okay saying I have to figure a game out. But I'm someone who plays War in the Pacific. So
now with Twilight Struggle, you have it on the PC?
Yeah, I don't have it on the iPad.
Okay, and let me ask you something. If you were able to pick up the game a lot more quicker, you would probably play it more often, though, right?
Maybe. I don't really play many games on my iPad, and I'm generally when I'm playing on my computer, I'm more willing to spend some time figuring things out.
Why? So why is that? If you don't mind me asking,
why don't I play games on my iPad?
Yeah.
One, I like. Personally, I think for strategy games and games that are a little bit deeper, I think a touch interface isn't as convenient for me. Maybe I'm just used to using a mouse and keyboard, but I kind of prefer the mouse and keyboard approach for those kind of games. I think most UIs are much cleaner and better for a mouse-oriented game. I realize that's not true if it's just an iPad game only, but I don't know. That's a good question. If I'm trying to think about, I guess I don't game much on the move, right? If I'm gonna be playing a game, I'm generally going to be kind of in my den or office or whatever. I wish I had like a formal office. It's a glorified second bedroom that we don't use because we don't need it, and it's half of my wife's clothes are behind me, and it's it helps to muffle the sound a bit, but it's not it's a walk-in closet / computer cave in our massive 800-900 square foot apartment. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. But I don't play a ton of games when I'm like out in the living room or whatever. If I'm out there, it's kind of more spending time with my wife. Maybe paying more attention to her than playing a game. As far as if I want a game, I want to be able to focus on it, and I kind of isolate myself off in my own room doing that. And I don't know if I'm in like a private room, I don't really play a lot of games while I'm like watching TV or watching something else. If I'm going to be playing a game in general, I'm going to be focusing on that game. And to me, like, I'm not going to sit at a desk and play on an iPad. I would rather have a 20-inch dual monitor setup, 2 monitors, where I can just kind of enjoy that experience as opposed to playing on a 10-inch screen, staring down into my hands to do it. I also think that, just like I said, for most war games, I think user interfaces is far superior on computer with a mouse click interface. Maybe that's just because not enough developers have spent enough time developing for iPad yet. But even so, having 2 monitors, 40 inches of real estate to play around with, if I want to be able to record, if I want to be able to share, if I want to be able to, do other things, I think it's a far superior experience on a computer than it is on an iPad. But I don't feel like I'm giving a good rationale. I don't think I've had enough time to really think about it. But again, I don't play while watching TV generally. I don't play while, sitting on the couch generally. I'd much rather sit in my, comfy office chair and in front of a computer and play if I'm going to do that.
So, I mean, for me, like, I used to do that myself when I was still married. I call it. I used to have we actually had the same kind of setup. Had a secondary room and had my iMac in there, and I would kind of I would play Hearts Iron, and record all my games in there or interviews, whatever it may be. And, and that was, that was fine at that time. But one thing that I, got from watching Steve Jobs during the All Things D conference in 2010, they asked him, what do you see the iPad as? Do you see people flocking to iPad? And he kind of gave a really great explanation. He said, well, PCs are kind of like trucks. And the way he sees the iPad is that everybody's going to, at one point, not right away, but over time, is going to flock from desktops and laptops. Because currently, right now, everybody uses a laptop or a desktop, primarily a laptop, especially college students and young adults. They all use laptops, and that's going to be that currently is the car, in terms of that ratio. And he sees everything going to the laptop. So eventually the desktop, the laptop is going to be like the truck. It's going to still be around, but not everybody is going to, I'm probably not saying this analogy correctly, but basically the way he kind of laid it out is 9 out of 10 people own a car, right? Only 1 out of 10 people own a truck, right? Eventually the tablet market is going to be 9 out of 10 people are going to use a tablet for their daily and professional computer needs, and only 1 out of 10 people are going to use desktops and laptops because they, prefer it or whatever it may be. And I'm kind of on that bandwagon. I kind of maybe I'm an early adopter, but I can see that future. And the reason why I see that future, I really love that future, is because when I was still married, I had that room, I had my iMac, and I was playing the games on there. But it kind of gave me, it kind of limited me to be in that room, play on a computer, have a desk, have a chair, and kind of stare into my screen. The beautiful thing about a tablet, whether it be an iPad or a Surface or whatever it may be, is it kind of frees you from the clutches of having a desk and having a place to go. It kind of attaches the computer to be a part of you. So you can do whatever you need to do, but anywhere you need to do it. And I really, and I'm kind of experiencing that now. Like I was saying earlier, or I think even before we started recording, that, I haven't been on my iMac lately the last couple of weeks. I've been home for 2 weeks, right? And I probably turned on my iMac twice, right? The majority of the time I was kind of sitting back, watching Top Gear on my TV with my tablet in my hand and playing Command of the Great War or whatever, Here's in Normandy or Drive on Moscow, whatever it was. And it kind of, I'm not going to say it kind of freed me. It's kind of liberating in a way because I'm able to watch TV, but also have a full-fledged computer in my hand that I'm able to play a grand strategy war game while watching TV. And it kind of gives me a sense of freedom and liberation that, I haven't experienced before with a laptop or a desktop. Because a laptop, it feels more clunky than a traditional tablet. Currently, like majority of the laptops now are touchscreen, but that keyboard section, the whole main frame of it, kind of gets in a way, and it kind of is more. How do I say? It's just too much. I feel like the tablet is like the perfect blend between a phone and a and a desktop, and I feel like that's where we need to go. I want to see all my favorite games, Command of the Great War, the games that we've been playing, Strategic Command. I really want to see Strategic Command on the iPad. I really want to see these on the tablet because I feel like it's going to push us into a new age of wargaming that we haven't seen before.
I think I think it's interesting hearing you make that pitch when you had the reservations about Hearts of Iron 4 that you did, that you wanted it to be more like Hearts of Iron 3. I don't mean that as any sort of not trying to be overly critical, but I guess I don't know if what you're talking about mixes with truly deep strategy games. I think for most deep strategy games, if you really want a deep game, you can't. Okay, everybody can do what they want to do, but me personally, I can't get into a game like, and I'm going to use War in the Pacific because it is the deepest of the deep strategy games that I can think of. I could never play that game effectively with like 30% of my attention or 40% of my attention. And
you don't think so?
No way in hell. Sometimes I think I
mean,
have West Wing in the background or something like TV.
One cool thing is let's say you do I don't know, let's say you War in Pacific, let's say you're doing the Coral Sea campaign
if it's like a smaller campaign, but if I'm playing the grand campaign, if I'm playing the full-on deep, very, very deep game where I've got to think about my moves days and months in advance, and I've got to make sure I'm not missing logistics and everything's being managed. And that's an extreme example, but I guess to me, I want to, and everybody has a different personality, but I don't want to be playing games in front of a TV, not just because I struggle to concentrate on the game, but odds are if I'm in front of the TV, I don't watch a ton of TV to begin with, but if I'm in front of the TV, I'm probably in front of the TV with friends or family or my wife or whatever, and I to me that's more of a social time. I don't need to be playing a game while I'm doing that. And if I'm playing a game, it's almost like reading to me. I want to be off in my own little enclave, focusing on what I'm doing, really thinking about it. To me, what appeals to me about war games and strategy games is the cerebral side. It's not necessarily... There are games that I play to disconnect from the world and just not think. I'm going to admit it here, I play Madden quite a bit on my PlayStation 4, which, yes, I have a console. I play PlayStation 4. That's a game I'll pop in if I just don't want to think. If I just want to click buttons, and play through something and not really have to think much. But to me, if I'm going to be playing a strategy game, if I'm going to be playing a war game, in general, there are some games that do this more than others. I want to really be kind of thinking about what am I doing, why am I doing it, or talking or thinking about history or other things while I'm doing it. I don't want a ton of distractions. And that's why desktop gaming works for me. That's why kind of being off in my own room works for me. And it's a very similar approach for me for reading. If I'm reading a book, if I don't want to think a ton about reading, I'll probably listen to something on Audible, or maybe I do want to think about it, but I'm driving and I just can't. Obviously it wouldn't be safe to hold a book up while I'm driving, so I'll listen to it on Audible. But if I really want to kind of get into something and learn about it and understand it, I need to be away from distractions. I need to be kind of in my own little area where my mind is free to think about what I'm reading and not with constant interference and distraction. And I don't feel like I can get that from a tablet. I'll get a notification for an email. I'll be like, oh, I'll pull up this this browser or look at this other thing. And I've read quite a bit on iPad or Android tablets as well. It's a little bit less distracting there, but even like I get far more out of reading a physical book, which I don't do enough of, and that's one of my New Year's resolutions is to make sure I read at least once a day. But I get far more out of a physical book or out of a war game or out of reading, in my own little area than I do if I'm trying to multitask. And, if I'm going to do something well, I think I need to kind of be focusing on it. And that's one reason that, I only recently started streaming games on my channel, and I enjoy it for the social aspect. Like, I enjoy being able to talk to people on my channel and kind of interact with them as I play, but I don't play as well. I don't talk as much about history. I don't do the things that I think for a long time kind of were sort of my channel's niche, and I think were made me more unique when I'm streaming, because I'm trying to talk to people while playing a game, while providing commentary, all at the same time, and I'm multitasking too much. And if I think in my book, and this is just me, again, I'm repeating myself here, but if I really want to do something well, I need to be off in my own little kind of world, focusing on it in order to really get as much out of it as I think I can.
And I could see your point, but for me, there's 2 points that I have. So I don't know. It's probably trying to find words for here, but basically with my iPad, I feel like it kind of it gives me. So I'll give you a good example. If I want to play a game on my desktop, right? I literally have to turn on the computer. It has to it has to turn on, right? And has to load the main operating system, firmware, and then operating system. That usually takes 30 seconds or 45 seconds. And
you need to upgrade to a solid state drive. Mine boots in 6 seconds.
Well,
I'll shoot you an Amazon affiliate link if you want to give me a little cut.
The beautiful thing about having an iPad is it's all a solid state, and unfortunately my iMac is actually a Fusion drive, so the operating system is on the 128 gig SSD. So it does load I'm probably saying 30 seconds, probably 30. But then, I have to load a virtual machine because I need Windows to play most of my games. So I have to do that, and that takes another, probably a minute or two. And then, load Steam or load the game up. That takes probably another minute. So at this point, if I want to play a game, it's going to take me a good 4 to 5 minutes just to even load the game up on my iMac. Now, I know if I was running a Windows machine, it would probably take about half the time because I wouldn't have to run a virtual machine. But the beautiful thing about running these games on my iPad in front of a TV is that I can, kick my legs up on my couch or chair, whatever it may be, right? And I can play grand strategy games. Like Command of the Great War is not as in depth as War in the Pacific. But the beautiful thing about it is I can take breaks. I could do 1 or 2 moves, pop out of the game, watch a little bit of TV, go back in the game because they will remember the exact part I left the game at, and I could just do another couple of moves. So it might take me 20 minutes to do a turn or whatever it may be, but the game's always active. It's always there. I could always just jump in there. Sometimes I do that. I'll go in, I'll do 1 turn, or I'll do a couple moves, and I'll leave the game and do something else, watch a movie or watch a TV, and then go back in the game, finish that turn or whatever, finish a couple moves. And I really love that capability. And I feel like with the I'm not going to say old desktops, but I feel like with the desktops, that mantra that we have with the desktops, everything takes time. The desktop is kind of like the, as Steve Jobs put it, like the mother of the house. I think that's what he used. It kind of it's the center of our house because everything connects to it. Our phones connected to it, our tablets connect to it, our cameras connect to it. Every device in the house is kind of like the center.
By the way, do you get like a mother of that? Do you get a residual every time you bring up Apple or Steve Jobs or Mac or something?
What do you mean?
I don't know. You certainly talk about Apple and Mac a lot. I'm just giving you shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I do see Steve Jobs as a really great visionary, and I do watch a lot of his old conferences and his stuff. Because
you don't need to defend yourself. I'm just being a dick.
The one thing we have to admit is Steve Jobs did change the world, and there's certain stuff that he says if you watch All Things D that's still coming true today. There was one thing that I thought he would never, that I wasn't sure that he was going to get right, which is Adobe Flash is eventually going to die off. And this was back when every website was coded Adobe Flash. I think even some of us in Apple were like, seriously, I don't think that's going to happen because everything's coded in Flash. And now when you look at the web today, 2017, there's only like single-digit websites that are still running Flash, and it's just amazing. And 7 years ago, he thought of that, and I could not. But anyway, I digress. But my point is like I feel that when you have, I feel like we can make games like Warner Pacific on the tablet. You just have to change the UI around a bit, and I feel the always-on feature of having a phone or a tablet where it's always on, you could always go back in the game and it takes literally milliseconds for it to load, kind of beats out the desktop where you have to turn on the computer, go to your computer room, turn it on, wait for the operating system to load the game up, and you're literally going through a whole song and dance just to play the game that you want to get to. I don't know, maybe it's just me being impatient or expecting more, but I feel like the iPad and the iPhone being always on and me just literally being 2 or 3 seconds away from playing my favorite game versus having to wait 5 minutes is a big deal for me.
And maybe again, I'm not saying it's superior or not. I think you may look for different things out of a game than I look for. In my case, when I'm playing most of the games I play on my computer, I'm not looking to just relax or disconnect or whatever. I'm looking for, a more, again, when I say this, it sounds condescending, and that's not what I'm trying to come off as, but when I'm playing games, I'm looking to engross myself in the game, and I'm not looking for distractions. And to me, it's easier to do that on my computer than it is on my iPad, on my couch. I don't want to play on my couch. That's just me. I don't feel like playing war games on my couch. I don't feel like I get the same depth of experience playing a game on my couch in front of my TV. But again, that's me personally. And again, everybody's looking at a very different expectation of what they're looking for. And obviously for you, that convenience factor is huge. And I'll admit, when the iPad came out, I was one of those people who was like, why would you ever downgrade? Like, clearly, when the first iPad came out, it was dramatically inferior to pretty much all laptops that were out on the market in terms of what you could do on it. But to a lot of people, that portable, consumable entertainment hub where you're a consumer of entertainment rather than a creator of something was vastly popular. And who am I to argue with what most people want? Everybody's looking for different things. To me, the desktop still reigns supreme in strategy games for the reasons I've laid out. But everything dies at some point. I mean, I don't think it's revolutionary to say that Adobe would go away at some point for Adobe Flash. I'm sure at some point HTML5 will be replaced by HTML6, and maybe even HTML will go away at some point. There's a lot of visionaries out there. Gene how do you pronounce his name? Gene Roddenberry. Like, if you look at a lot of what he said for Star Trek, like how many of those things are coming true? Hell, we're headed toward a post-work future, crazily enough, it seems like, with the way technology is happening, or certainly a post-industrial future. And let's just pray that we don't have the impacts to our society and our culture that his Star Trek universe had to go through before they ended up where they ended up.
Which was a nuclear holocaust.
Yeah, well, I mean,
hopefully we don't go through that.
You got to wonder when all factory jobs go away and a huge percentage of service jobs go away and everything like that, with computers becoming as powerful and intelligent as they are, when you don't need workers anymore and you have 6 billion people on the planet, what does everybody do?
According to Elon Musk, we're only, at least for the auto industry and retail, and a couple of retail and a lot of the retail industry. He kind of predicted, I think in the last Free Code conference, I think he was saying projecting 2020 to 2025 that a lot of, like, we're talking about taxi cabs, truck drivers, all being unemployed because, well, automation can do it, and why not? And
I think the self-driving technology will get there before people are comfortable with it. So I think the difficulty with self-driving taxis, long-haul freight's a different matter. But with like taxis specifically or Ubers, like I'm not going to jump in a car that's driven by a computer probably. Like I just don't, you've got to sell the consumer on it in addition to just getting the technology there. Not to mention you've got to sell legislation on it. For a long time probably someone's going to have to be a glorified, whatever, who's going to sit there and make sure nothing breaks. I think we're probably more than 3 years out, but I would guess 10 years is certainly in the realm of possibility. And then you've got 3 to 5 million unemployed drivers who used to have decent paying jobs who now have nothing. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where we go as a society. I feel like our podcast has been all over the map,
But to just kind of curve it out, I mean, the one thing I will say is if the tablet is going to be the future of gaming, the way we, like we're talking about War in the Pacific and stuff like that, at this point, I'll have to say, I can't physically see iOS being the be-all, end-all, because at this point, like we were discussing earlier, I can't record gameplay on there. As you were saying, even Slytherin is not even going to Android because the marketplace isn't there. I feel like at this point, if I want,
I haven't heard them say that. It just seems to be the it's deductive reasoning.
I remember reading an article where they mentioned that Android wasn't providing a sufficient revenue stream for them to invest in. So I remember reading an article, something like that. But at this point, like the only thing I can see as if I want to get my whole gaming fix on, like actually playing War in the Pacific today on a tablet, the only thing I can see right now is believe it or not, a Surface. And I can't believe I'm even considering purchasing a Surface. I was anti-Windows since I got a Mac because, well, I feel like Mac is a lot more stable and a lot that's a whole nother conversation. But I honestly, like, the Surface has been very attractive because I can do everything you were mentioning, playing those heavy games, but everywhere. And I think that would be really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything that you've said. Surface has gone from being kind of, in my opinion, kind of chuckling, and maybe this just proves how out of touch I am with new product launches, but which is probably a bad thing because I work in product development. But as far as the Surface is concerned, I will say it is impressive how far it has come. From the initial attempt to be like an iPad to
being a joke at one point.
Yeah, I mean, it really was. And, kudos to Microsoft for making, I wouldn't say the Surface, it seems like the original Surface concept of being a tablet has changed into being like a Surface Pro, which is really a hyper lightweight portable laptop really seems the direction it's gone. But they've done a great job with that product from everything I've seen. So...
you know who really is responsible for this? Because Ballmer, if you guys don't know, Steve Ballmer took over from Bill Gates, and he ruined. He really effed up Microsoft. But the one person that every time I see on screen when he goes on Recode or Walt Mossberg has a conference or whoever, is Satya. I'm probably saying his name incorrectly. Satya Nadella. He really transformed Microsoft, and the reason the Surface is such an amazing device, and I'm thinking of switching my platform, is because of that man. He transformed Microsoft into what it is today, and in effect, changing the way we play strategy games. Because I'm really seriously considering switching from my iPad to having a Surface and changing the way I play Hearts of Iron or, Matrix games or stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's... I can't say I know a ton about the big wigs at Microsoft, but, it seems like certainly they've made some progress there, and I kind of feel like we betrayed our listeners a little bit this episode. I've enjoyed the hell out of this discussion, but when we started the podcast 9 whole episodes ago, I think we kind of promoted it as, the idea of single malt strategy is this idea of, all right, guys, we're just going to talk about strategy games. Just like a single malt, scotch or single malt whiskey, you're looking at
or vodka.
Very specific. You're coming from one distillery, what have you. And this has definitely been a blended episode of many varying topics, not necessarily all related or specific to strategy. So this is the Blended Malt podcast today, or maybe blended whiskey podcast. But with that being said, before we head out, what are you drinking? Anything to hold you over in the midst of this blizzard that you're suffering through?
Oh, I kind of broke the golden rule, Matt. I kind of broke the golden rule. I kind of had earlier. I had a couple of bottles of O'Connor's El Guapo beer, IPA, of course. And then somewhere, I don't know, an hour or two ago, I kind of switched over to vodka. So I kind of broke the golden rule, and I think it's beer before. What is the rule?
I think it's beer before liquor, never been sicker.
Yeah, so I broke that rule. So don't call me tomorrow.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I'm currently drinking. I'm drinking some Jameson Black Barrel, nice. I think it is, which is a charred. It's like the standard Jameson, but it's in charred whiskey barrels. So it has a little bit of a, I don't know, smoky taste as opposed to Jameson normally, which normally to me has a very oaky taste. But I'm hardly a whiskey connoisseur, so it's hard for me to be too specific. I'm not one of those people who like smell it and taste it and they'll be like, I taste peach and a little bit of tar and a little bit of pineapple. And it's like, okay, it tastes a little fruity. That's like where I'm at. But in this case, it's a little bit more charred. Enjoying it while while talking.
Yeah, it's been a while since I had Jameson, man. I miss that taste. I had like probably half a bottle of Jack during Christmas Eve. That was interesting night.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it was really. I haven't had Jack for a long time, and it was just the bottle sitting there. No one was having it, so I was
if no one's gonna drink it, I guess I'll drink this whole thing. Yeah, I got the Jameson as a Christmas gift, so nice. I've been enjoying it a bit.
I have to kind of I have to leave hints for my family to like, hey, instead of a sweater and some shirts for Christmas, maybe I can give them some hints for some Jameson next time.
Yeah,
Black Barrel, right?
That's what it's called. Yeah, it's a pretty reasonably priced.
I don't know how I'm going to pitch that off. I would like some Black Barrel Jameson before Christmas. I don't know how I'm going to hint that, but somehow that'll work.
Well, you got 11 months to figure it out now, right?
Yeah, right.
All right, guys. Well, I guess this is a mobile-centric technology episode more than anything, but I hope everybody enjoyed episode 9 of the Single Malt Strategy podcast. This episode probably more of a blended whiskey, but anyway. My name is Matt. I'm the Historical Gamer, and I want to thank everybody for joining us. You can find me at my channel, The Historical Gamer, on YouTube. That's youtube.com/thehistoricalgamer. Don't forget the. And I'm with Jean, the Strategy War Gamer. Do you want to plug your site, John?
Yeah, it's just strategywargamer.com or if on Twitter it's Strategy Wargamer without the E. It's kind of weird. Somebody for some reason took that name. I don't know why, but.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us again. If you are listening on iTunes, we are obviously available on iTunes. We're also on YouTube and SoundCloud and a whole bunch of other podcast services. But please, if you're listening on iTunes, throw us a rating, whether it's good or poor. Let us know what you like about it. Feel free to leave a review if you so desire. But anyway, guys, again, hope you all enjoyed. And until next time, thank you for watching, and we're out.